Hello, story lovers! Tonight, we're diving into a tale of passion, secrets, and choices that could change everything. Hearts will be broken, love will be tested, and every twist will leave you on the edge of your seat. Comment below where you're watching from, and if this story moves you, hit like, subscribe. Share it with someone who loves a powerful love story, and tap the bell so you never miss the next thrilling chapter. Ready? Let's begin? Asterisk. The rain hammered against the windshield of Sebastian Montenegro's midnight blue Aston Martin like bullets from heaven. Thunder rolled across the Seattle sky as he gripped the steering wheel, his knuckles white with frustration. The merger meeting had been a disaster. Another group of investors more interested in quick profits than revolutionary innovation. At 34, Sebastian had built Montenegro Dynamics from a college dorm room idea into a $12 billion empire. But success felt hollow when surrounded by people who only saw dollar signs. The engine sputtered once, twice, then died completely. Sebastian coasted to the curb, rain pelting his car like nature's own judgment. Through the storm, he spotted a warm glow emanating from a small storefront across the street. Gold lettering on the window read Harper's Haven Books in elegant script. Without an umbrella, Sebastian made a desperate dash through the downpour. His expensive suit soaked within seconds. The brass bell above the door chimed softly as Sebastian burst into the bookstore, dripping onto worn hardwood floors. The space was a bibliophile's dream, towering shelves reaching toward tin ceilings, cozy reading nooks tucked into every corner, and the intoxicating scent of aged paper and leather bindings. Fire crackled in a stone fireplace, casting dancing shadows across walls lined with literary treasures. "Oh my goodness, you're soaked through." The voice was soft and musical, filled with genuine concern. Sebastian turned to see a young woman. Emerging from behind a massive oak desk, her arms full of leather-bound volumes. She had the kind of natural beauty that belonged in Renaissance paintings, cascading auburn hair that caught the firelight, intelligent green eyes that seemed to hold entire worlds within them, face that radiated kindness without pretense. She wore a simple cream-colored sweater over dark jeans, her only jewelry a delicate silver locket that caught the light. As she moved when she smiled, Sebastian felt something shift in his chest. A recognition he couldn't name but felt in his bones. "Let me get you a towel," she said, setting down her books and hurrying toward a small alcove and some tea. "Look like you've been fighting the storm and losing." Sebastian found himself studying the space around him while she was gone. This wasn't just a bookstore. It was a carefully curated sanctuary. First editions sat beside dog-eared paperbacks, creating an atmosphere where literature mattered more than monetary value. Handwritten recommendation cards were tucked between books, each one bearing thoughtful insights in flowing handwriting. She returned with a thick towel and a steaming mug, her movements graceful and unhurried. "I'm Celeste Harper," she said, offering both with a smile that made Sebastian forget about his ruined suit and stalled car. "And you look like someone who needs rescuing from more than just the rain." "Sebastian," he replied, accepting the towel and mug gratefully. The tea was perfect. Earl Grey with just a hint of honey. "This place is incredible. How long have you owned it?" Celeste laughed, the sound like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "Oh, I don't own it. My grandmother did. I just run it while finishing. My literature degree, it's not much, but it's home." She gestured around the store with obvious affection. "Every book here has been chosen with love. Grandma always said that books were meant to find their people, not the other way around." Sebastian found himself drawn deeper into conversation with this remarkable young woman. She spoke about literature with the passion others reserved for religion, her eyes lighting up as she discussed Austen's wit or Dickens' social commentary. When she learned he enjoyed reading despite his demanding schedule, she began pulling books from shelves with the enthusiasm of a treasure hunter. "Have you read Neruda's poetry?" she asked, climbing a rolling ladder to reach a high shelf. His words about love could make stone hearts weep. She handed him a slim volume, their fingers brushing during the exchange. The contact sent electricity through Sebastian's entire body, and from the way Celeste's breath caught, he knew she felt it too. As the storm raged outside, they found themselves sitting by the fire, discussing everything from philosophy to their dreams for the future. Celeste spoke about her thesis on women writers of the 19th century. Her plans to become a professor, her belief that literature could change hearts and minds. Sebastian found himself sharing things he'd never told anyone, his loneliness. Despite his success, his desire to create technology that truly helped people, his fear that he'd lost himself somewhere between boardrooms and bank accounts. "You have sad eyes," Celeste observed softly, studying his face in the firelight like someone who's been carrying weight that isn't entirely his to bear. The observation caught Sebastian off guard. In his world, people saw what he wanted them to see: confidence, success, control. But this gentle soul saw past his carefully constructed facade to the man beneath. "Maybe I have been," he admitted. Surprised by his own honesty, Celeste reached out and touched his hand, where it rested on the arm of his chair. Her touch was light as butterfly wings, but burned like a brand. Sometimes the heaviest burdens are the ones we place on ourselves. Sebastian looked at this woman who challenged everything he thought he knew about connection and vulnerability. At 22, she possessed wisdom that his 34 years had failed to teach him. Her world was small but rich, filled with beauty and meaning rather than profit margins and power plays. "I should probably call for a car," he said reluctantly, though every instinct screamed at him to stay in this warm sanctuary forever. "The storm's still pretty fierce," Celeste observed, glancing toward the rain-lashed windows. "Your phone might not have service. Besides," she added with a shy smile, "I was about to make dinner. Nothing fancy, just pasta and the kind of bread that comes from a local bakery, not a 5-star restaurant. You're welcome to stay until the weather clears." Sebastian knew he should leave. Everything about Celeste Harper was dangerous to his carefully ordered existence. She represented everything he'd convinced himself he couldn't have: simplicity, authenticity, love without agenda. But as he looked at her face, illuminated by firelight and unmarked by the cynicism that plagued his usual companions, Sebastian made a decision that would change both their lives. "I'd like that very much," he said softly. Moving closer to where she sat curled in her chair, he added words that came from some deep, unguarded part of his soul. "Lest, I need you to know something. I come from a world that's very different. From this," he gestured around the bookstore. "A world that can be cruel and calculating. But whatever happens between us, whatever develops from this moment, I promise you this: I will never let that world hurt you. I'll never let anyone, including myself, damage the beautiful spirit you have." Celeste's eyes widened at the intensity in his voice. She could sense undercurrents she didn't understand, depths to this man that both thrilled and frightened her. "Sebastian," she whispered, "what world do you come from that requires such promises?" Instead of answering directly, Sebastian reached out to cup her face in his hands, marveling at how she leaned into his touch with complete trust. "One that doesn't deserve someone like you," he said, and leaned down to kiss her forehead gently, sealing his vow with the tenderness of a prayer. As thunder crashed overhead and rain continued its assault on the windows, neither Sebastian nor Celeste could know that his promise to protect her would become the greatest test their love would ever face. The phone in Sebastian's jacket pocket buzzed insistently. He ignored it once, twice, but on the third buzz, Celeste pulled back slightly. "You should answer that," she said softly. "It might be important." Das. Sebastian's blood ran cold when he saw the caller ID, Marcus Blackwood, his business partner. The man who knew every secret Sebastian had fought to bury. "Montenegro," he answered, his voice suddenly sharp and businesslike. "We have a problem." Marcus's voice crackled through the phone. "Alina Rodriguez found the files. It's threatening to go public unless you meet her demands. Tonight." Sebastian's face went ashen. Alina, his former fiancée. The woman who knew about the Montenegro family's dark legacy. It's the blood money that had built his empire, the lives destroyed in the name of progress. "I'll handle it," Sebastian said quietly, his eyes never leaving Celeste's concerned face. "You'd better. Because if she talks, it won't just be your reputation that burns. Everyone you care about becomes a target." The line went dead. Sebastian stared at the phone, feeling the weight of his past crashing down around this perfect moment. "Sebastian?" Celeste's voice was gentle, worried. "What's wrong? You look like you've seen a ghost." "I have to go." The words tasted like ash in Sebastian's mouth as he stood abruptly, his phone still clutched in his white-knuckled grip. Celeste rose from her chair, confusion and hurt flickering across her features. "Sebastian, wait, what just happened? Who was that? Someone from my past?" He couldn't meet her eyes. The warmth that had enveloped him moments before now felt like a cruel joke. "Someone who reminds me why I can't have this, why I can't have you." Psst. Celeste stepped closer, her hand reaching for his arm. "Whatever it is, we can figure it out together." Sebastian pulled away as if her touch burned. "You don't understand. You live in a world of poetry and beautiful words, where people are basically good and love conquers all. My world doesn't work that way. And tell me how it works." Her voice was steady, but he could see the tremor in her hands. "Trust me enough to let me decide for myself." For a moment, Sebastian wavered. The fire crackled behind them, casting their shadows long across the floor. Outside, the storm showed no signs of abating. This sanctuary she'd created felt like the only real thing in his life, and he was about to walk away from it. "My father didn't build Montenegro dynamics through innovation alone," he began, his voice barely above a whisper. "He destroyed companies, ruined lives, bought politicians, and buried anyone who stood in his way. When he died, I inherited more than money. I inherited enemies." Celeste's face paled, but she didn't step back. "That's his legacy, not yours, isn't it?" Sebastian's laugh was bitter. "How do you think I expanded so quickly? How do you think a 20-something college dropout became a billionaire in 10 years? I told myself I was different, that I was building something better. But when push came to shove, I used his methods. I became him." The confession hung in, the air between them like a poison cloud. Sebastian watched as Celeste processed his words, waiting for the inevitable disgust, the fear, the rejection he deserved. Instead, she asked quietly who was on the phone. "Elena Rodriguez, my former fiancé." The words came easier now that he'd started. "She has evidence of things I've done, legal things. Things that could destroy not just me, but everyone associated with me." "What kind of things?" Sebastian closed his eyes. "Industrial espionage. Bribery. There was a small tech company in Portland 3 years ago. It had a breakthrough in renewable energy that could have changed everything. But they were going to go public, make it available to everyone for free. You stopped them. I bought their debt, called in favors with their investors, and when that didn't work..." He opened his eyes to find Celeste watching him with an expression he couldn't read. "There was an accident, a fire in their lab. No one was supposed to get hurt, but one of their researchers was working late." The silence stretched between them. Rain hammered against the windows with renewed fury. "Did they die?" Celeste's voice was barely audible. "No, but she was burned badly, hospitalized for months. Her name was Sarah Chen, brilliant scientist, devoted mother of 2. Sebastian's voice cracked. "Elena has security footage showing my people at the scene. She has financial records proving I paid for it." Celeste sank back into her chair as if the weight of his confession had physically struck her. "And now she wants something. She wants me to marry her. Publicly. Give her access to my fortune. And my network. If I don't, she goes to the FBI and the media with everything she has. Why marriage? Why not just money?" Sebastian ran his hands through his hair, pacing now like a caged animal. "Because Elena doesn't just want to destroy me. She wants to control me. She's as ruthless as I am, maybe more so. This isn't about justice. It's about power. When if you marry her, then I become her weapon. She uses Montenegro dynamics for her own agenda, and I'm trapped forever in a prison of my own making." Celeste was quiet for a long moment, staring into the fire. When she finally spoke, her voice was different, harder. "So you came here tonight, made me feel something real, promised to protect me, knowing you were already owned by someone else?" The accusation hit him like a physical blow. "No, God, no. This," he gestured between them, "this was never supposed. To happen? I didn't plan any of this. Bet you're going to leave anyway. It wasn't a question. If I stay, if I fight this, Alina will destroy everyone I care about, including you. Sebastian dropped to his knees in front of her chair, taking her hands in his despite her resistance. Celeste, you have to understand. In my world, caring about someone makes them a target. The moment Alina learns about you, you become leverage. Against me. Tears glittered in Celeste's eyes, but her voice remained steady. So your solution is to abandon me before she gets the chance? My solution is to keep you safe? By lying to me? By pretending tonight meant nothing? Sebastian felt something break inside his chest. It meant everything. That's the problem. Celeste pulled her hands free and stood up, walking to the window. Lightning illuminated her silhouette, and for a moment she looked like a ghost. I have a choice to make too, you know, she said without turning around. What do you mean? Faced him then, and the look in her eyes made Sebastian's blood freeze. I know who you are, Sebastian Montenegro. Known since the moment you walked in here. The world tilted on its axis. That's impossible. My grandmother didn't just own this bookstore. She was a journalist before she retired. Investigative journalism. She spent years tracking corporate corruption, environmental crimes, industrial accidents that were covered up. Celeste's voice was like steel now. Duh. She had files on Montenegro dynamics dating back to your father's time. Sebastian staggered backward. You've been playing me? No. The word came out fierce and sharp. I didn't plan for this any more than you did. But when you walked through that door, I recognized you from her photos. I knew what your family had done, what you'd done. And I made a choice to see if there was any goodness left in you, in your verdict. Celeste looked at him for a long moment, her expression unreadable. I think you're a man who spent so long being afraid of becoming his father that you can't see. You already have a choice. You can keep running from your past, or you can face it. It's not that simple, it never is. Moved toward her grandmother's desk, pulling out a thick manila folder. But maybe it's time you knew the whole truth. She handed him the folder. Inside were photographs, documents, newspaper clippings. But what made Sebastian's hands shake was the top photo. His father and Elena's father shaking hands over a contract. The Rodriguez family wasn't just business associates, Celeste said quietly. They were partners in everything. Elena's father helped cover up every crime your father committed, including the ones that got people killed. Sebastian looked up. From the folder, his mind reeling. How do you know all this? Because my grandmother was going to expose them both. 20 years ago, she had enough evidence to bring down both families. But the night before her story was supposed to run, what happened? Celeste's eyes filled with tears. Someone burned down her newspaper office. She barely escaped with her life. She spent the next 2 decades living in fear, convinced they would come for her again if she ever tried to publish. The folder slipped from Sebastian's numb fingers, its contents scattering across the floor. Your grandmother. The fire at her newspaper. That was your father, yes. The revelation hit Sebastian like a physical blow. He sank to his knees among the scattered documents, staring at evidence of his family's crimes, at photos of victims he'd never known existed. So you see, Celeste continued, her voice breaking now, Alina doesn't just have leverage over you. She has leverage over me too, because if this evidence ever sees daylight, it doesn't just destroy you. It destroys the last 20 years of my grandmother's life, proves she was a coward who let them win. Sebastian looked up at her, understanding dawning in his eyes. That's why you really brought me here tonight. It's not coincidence, not fate, revenge. I don't know anymore. Tears streamed down Celeste's face. I thought I did. I thought I wanted to watch you burn. But then you made that promise, and you looked at me like I was something precious, and I realized I might be falling in love with the man who destroyed my family. The storm outside seemed to pause, as if even nature was holding its breath. Sebastian rose slowly, his eyes never leaving Celeste's face. What happens now? Before Celeste could answer, her phone rang. The display showed an unknown number. She answered hesitantly. Hello? Miss Harper? The voice was cultured, female, and coldly. Amused, I think it's time we met. Who is this? Celeste's knuckles were white around the phone. Elena Rodriguez. I believe you've been entertaining my fiancé this evening. Sebastian's face went ashen. He grabbed for the phone, but Celeste pulled back, her eyes locked on his. He's not your fiancé, Celeste said quietly. Elena's laugh was like breaking glass. Oh, my dear child. By tomorrow morning he will be? You see, I know exactly who you are, Miss Harper. Granddaughter of Rebecca Harper, the journalist who nearly brought down two of Seattle's most powerful families. I've had you under surveillance for 3 years, ever since Sebastian started his little redemption tours. I needed to know about anyone who might have evidence that could threaten me. Elena's voice turned sickeningly sweet. Imagine my delight when I discovered that not only does such evidence exist, but it's in the hands of a naive a girl who runs a failing bookstore. Celeste's legs gave out. She sank into her grandmother's chair, the phone trembling in her hand. What do you want? What I've always wanted. Sebastian's complete submission. But now I have a more interesting proposition. Elena paused, letting the silence stretch. I want you to convince him to marry me. Ever? Because if you don't, I'll release those files your grandmother kept hidden for 20 years. I'll tell the world how she was too much of a coward to publish the truth about the Montenegro and Rodriguez families. How she let victims go without justice because she was afraid. Sebastian lunged for the phone. Elena, leave her alone. This is between you and me. Ah, Sebastian. Still trying to play the hero? I see. How touching. Elena's voice dripped with venom. But this stopped being just about you the moment you involved an innocent. Now Miss Harper gets to share in the consequences of your choices. I'm not innocent, Celeste said suddenly, her voice stronger now. I brought him here tonight knowing who he was. I have my grandmother's files, her evidence. I could destroy you both. Elena's laughter was genuinely delighted. Oh, you delicious little thing, yes, you could try, but you won't, because you're not like us. You have a conscience. A heart. Weaknesses we learned to excise long ago. You don't know what I'm capable of. Don't I? You've spent your entire adult life protecting your grandmother's secret shame, preserving the illusion that she retired from journalism by choice instead of running away in terror. You've built your whole identity around being the keeper of books and stories, the guardian of truth. Could you really destroy that by admitting your beloved grandmother was a coward? The words hit Celeste like physical blows. Sebastian watched her face crumble, saw the exact moment Elena's poison found its mark. Here's what's going to happen, Elena continued. Tomorrow at noon, Sebastian and I will announce our engagement at a press conference. Miss Harper will be there, smiling and supporting her dear friend's happiness. In exchange, I'll let her keep her illusions about her precious grandmother, and if we refuse, Sebastian asked, then I release everything. The files about your father's crimes, your own illegal activities, and the true story of Rebecca Harper's cowardice. Sebastian goes to prison. Miss Harper loses her bookstore when the inevitable lawsuits destroy her financially. And your grandmother's reputation is ruined posthumously. Sebastian looked at Celeste, who sat frozen in the chair like a broken doll. Elena, please. She's not part of this. She became part of this the moment she opened her door to you. The moment she chose to fall in love with a monster. Elena's voice softened mockingly. Don't worry, darling. After we're married, I might even let you visit her occasionally. A harmless friendship between a powerful man's wife and a poor little shopkeeper. How quaint. The line went dead. The silence in the bookstore was deafening. Outside, the storm had finally begun to weaken, but inside, a different kind of tempest was brewing. This is my fault, Sebastian said finally. Should have stayed away. I should have known she was watching. Celeste looked up at him with eyes that seemed to hold a century of pain. Did you mean what you said earlier? About protecting me? Yes, then marry her. The words hit Sebastian like a sledgehammer. Celeste, no. You heard what she said. If you don't, I lose everything. My grandmother's memory, this place, everything I've spent my life building. She stood up slowly, moving like an old woman. At least if you marry her, only one of us has to sacrifice everything. That's not a solution. That's surrender. Sometimes surrender is the only option left. Sebastian grabbed her shoulders, forcing her to look at him. There has to be another way. We could run. leave the city, start over somewhere else, and spend the rest of our lives looking over our shoulders? Watch you slowly hate yourself for being a coward while I hate myself for making you one? Celeste shook her head. That's not love, Sebastian. That's just another kind of prison. So what do you suggest? That I marry a woman I despise while the woman I love watches from the sidelines? Celeste was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was different, calculating. What if we played her game better than she does? What do you mean? Celeste moved to her grandmother's desk, pulling out a small key hidden beneath a false bottom. She unlocked a drawer Sebastian hadn't noticed before and withdrew another folder, this one thicker than the first. My grandmother wasn't just a journalist, she was a strategist. She knew that someday someone might try to use her knowledge against her. Celeste opened the folder, revealing photographs, bank records, and what looked like shipping manifests. She spent 20 years gathering insurance. Sebastian looked at the documents. What am I looking at? Proof that the Rodriguez family didn't just help cover up your father's crimes, they committed their own. Elena's father was running guns to paramilitary groups in South America, using Montenegro shipping routes to transport them. And did your grandmother get this? She never stopped investigating. Even after the fire, even after going into hiding, she just got better at it. Celeste's eyes were hard now, all traces of the gentle literature student gone. Elena's father's dead, but she's been continuing his work. Those business trips to Colombia, those charity events for education reform, she's not just laundering money, she's facilitating human trafficking. Sebastian stared at the evidence in front of him. This would destroy her. It would destroy her family's empire and put her in federal prison for the rest of her life. Then why didn't your grandmother use it? 'Cause she was afraid. Afraid they'd kill her before she could expose them. Afraid they'd hurt someone she loved. Celeste looked at Sebastian meaningfully. But I'm not my grandmother. You're talking about blackmail. About becoming just like them. I'm talking about survival. Celeste's voice was cold now. Elena made a mistake when she threatened you tonight. She showed me exactly who she is. More importantly, she showed me who I need to become. Sebastian felt a chill run down his spine. The woman standing before him was still Celeste, but something fundamental had changed. The innocence Elena had mocked was gone, replaced by something harder and infinitely more dangerous.
What are you proposing? We give Elena what she wants.
You announce your engagement tomorrow? But we do it on our terms. Celeste's smile was sharp as a blade, 'cause she's not the only one who knows how to play the long game. Before Sebastian could respond, Celeste's phone buzzed with a text. Message. She glanced at it, and her face went white. What is it? She held up the phone. The message was from an unknown number, but there was no doubt who had sent it. I hope you enjoyed your conversation. The bookstore looks so cozy in the firelight. It would be a shame if something happened to it. See you tomorrow. Sebastian looked toward the windows. In the distance, barely visible through the rain, he could make out the silhouette of a black sedan parked across the street. She's been watching us this whole time, he whispered. Celeste followed his gaze, then turned back to him with a look that made his blood run cold. Good, she said quietly. Let her watch. Let her see exactly what she's unleashed. She moved to the window, staring directly at the sedan. Then, slowly and deliberately, she raised her hand and waved. The car's headlights flashed once in acknowledgement before it pulled away into the night. Sebastian stared at Celeste, hardly recognizing the woman who had served him tea and shared her dreams just hours before. Who are you? He whispered. Celeste turned from the window, and when she smiled, Sebastian saw something that made his heart skip a beat. I'm my grandmother's granddaughter, she said softly. And Elena Rodriguez is about to learn that some fires burn hotter than others. The press conference was held in the Crystal Ballroom of Seattle's most exclusive hotel. Cameras flashed as Sebastian stood beside Elena, her manicured hand possessively gripping his arm. She wore white, of course, statement of purity that was obscene in its irony. We're so happy to share our joyous news, Elena purred into the microphone, her voice honey-sweet for the gathered reporters. Sebastian and I have been through so much together, and we finally realized that we belong together. Sebastian's jaw ached for maintaining his fake smile. In the crowd, he could see Celeste standing near the back, her face a mask of polite interest. She'd dressed carefully for the occasion, in a simple black dress that made her look like she was attending a funeral, which Sebastian supposed she was. "Mr. Montenegro," a reporter called out, "there are rumors about irregularities in some of your recent business dealings. How do you respond to allegations of corporate espionage?" Sebastian's blood froze, but Elena's grip on his arm tightened reassuringly. "Baseless accusations from competitors who can't match Montenegro Dynamics' success," she answered for him. "My fiancé's always operated with the highest ethical standards." The lie rolled off her tongue so smoothly that Sebastian almost believed it himself. "What about the fire at Chen Technologies 3 years ago?" another reporter pressed. "Sources suggest Montenegro Dynamics benefited significantly from their misfortune." This time Sebastian felt Elena's nails dig into his arm through his suit. Jacket, a warning. "Tragic accident," Sebastian managed to say. "We were pleased to help with the recovery effort by purchasing some of their assets to keep the company afloat." More lies.
More poison.
Sebastian caught Celeste's eye across the room and saw something flicker across her face. Disappointment? Or calculation, Miss Harper? Elena suddenly called out, her voice carrying across the ballroom. "Why don't you come up here? Understand you're a dear friend of Sebastian's." Every eye in the room turned to Celeste. Sebastian's heart hammered. As she made her way through the crowd, her expression unreadable. "Celeste runs the most charming little bookstore," Elena continued, as Celeste joined them at the podium. "Sebastian was just telling me how much he enjoys browsing there for first editions. It's always a pleasure to help customers find exactly what they're looking for," Celeste said smoothly. Her eyes met Sebastian's for just a moment, and he saw something that made his pulse race. She was up to something. "In fact," Celeste continued, "I have something special for the happy couple. A rare first edition that I think you'll find quite illuminating." She reached into her purse and withdrew a slim leather-bound volume. Sebastian recognized it immediately. The book of Nerutha's poetry she'd shown him the night before. "This particular volume has an interesting history," Celeste said, her voice carrying clearly through the ballroom. "It belonged to a journalist named Rebecca Harper, who spent her career exposing corporate corruption." Elena's smile faltered for just an instant. "How thoughtful," Elena said, reaching for the book. "We'll treasure it," but Celeste pulled back slightly. "I think you'll want to examine it carefully first. You see, my grandmother had a habit of keeping important documents pressed between the pages of her favorite books. It's like pressed flowers, but infinitely more valuable." She opened the book, and Sebastian caught a glimpse of photographs tucked between the pages. Elena's face went ashen. "Perhaps we should discuss this privately," Elena said through gritted teeth, her media smile never wavering. "Oh, but privacy defeats the purpose, doesn't it?" Celeste's own smile was razor-sharp now. "After all, this is a celebration of truth and love. And the truth is, some stories are too important to keep hidden." She began to turn pages, each one revealing glimpses of documents, photographs, shipping manifests. The same evidence she'd shown Sebastian the night before. "Miss Harper?" Elena's voice carried a warning that made several reporters lean forward. "With interest, perhaps this isn't the appropriate venue for amateur history lessons." "You're absolutely right," Celeste agreed. "Which is why I've already sent copies of everything to the FBI, the Seattle Times, and the Washington Post. They're much better equipped to handle professional history lessons." The ballroom erupted. In chaos, reporters surged forward, cameras flashing, voices shouting questions. Elena's composure finally cracked, her face contorting with rage. "You stupid little girl," she snarled, abandoning all pretense. "You have no idea what you've done." "I know exactly what I've done," Celeste replied calmly. I've honored my grandmother's memory by finishing what she started." Elena lunged forward, but Sebastian caught her arm. "It's over, Elena." Elena's. The voice was wild now, desperate. "You think this changes anything? Still have everything on you? If I go down, you go down with me?" "Actually," Sebastian said quietly, "I don't think you do." He reached into his jacket and withdrew a small recording device. "You see, while you were so focused on Celeste, you forgot about me. About the fact that I might not be as helpless as you assumed. Alina stared at the device in horror. Did you record our conversation last night? Every word? Including your confession? To blackmail, extortion, and conspiracy. Sebastian's voice was steady now, stronger than it had been in years. The FBI already has copies. The silence in the ballroom was deafening. Lena looked between Sebastian and Celeste, her face cycling. Through rage, disbelief, and finally cold calculation. You think you've won? She said softly. Both of you. You've forgotten something important. She reached into her purse, and for a heart-stopping moment, Sebastian thought she might have a weapon. Instead, she withdrew her phone. To prison, Alina continued, her finger hovering over the screen, but not before I destroy everything you both care about. What are you talking about? Celeste demanded. Elena's smile was the most terrifying thing Sebastian had ever seen. Did you really think I wouldn't have contingencies? Right now, 3 of my associates are positioned at locations very dear to both of you. One at the bookstore, one at the hospital where Sarah Chen is recovering from her latest surgery, and one at the nursing home where Sebastian's mother lives. Sebastian's blood turned to ice. My mother has Alzheimer's. She doesn't even remember who I am, but you remember who she is. And Miss Harper, I'm sure you remember how Isley bookstores can burn. Celeste went white. You wouldn't. It's phone call, Elena said, her finger still poised over her phone, and all 3 locations experienced tragic accidents. Bless, of course. Both of you walk out of here right now and disappear forever. The reporters pressed closer, sensing the drama unfolding. Sebastian looked at Celeste, seeing his own desperation reflected in her eyes. You have 30 seconds to decide, Alina continued. Your principles or their lives. Choose wisely, Sebastian. Felt the weight of every mistake he'd ever made crushing down on him. All his promises to protect Celeste, all her courage in standing up to Alina, and it had led to this moment. The people they loved held hostage by a monster they'd underestimated. Celeste looked at Sebastian, and he saw something. Break in her eyes. Same look he'd seen in his own mirror for years. The look of someone realizing that sometimes there are no good choices, only degrees of damage. 10 seconds. Sebastian closed his eyes, preparing to surrender everything he'd fought for, when a new voice cut through the chaos. That call, if I were you, Alina. Everyone turned to see a woman in an FBI jacket pushing through the crowd, flanked by agents. She was older, with gray hair and tired eyes, but she moved with authority. Agent Sarah Chen, she announced, showing her badge. And before you ask, yes, I'm the same Sarah Chen whose lab you had burned 3 years ago, Mr. Montenegro. Sebastian's legs nearly gave out. The woman he'd had hospitalized, scarred for life, was standing 10 feet away wearing a federal badge. The same Sarah Chen who's been working undercover for the past 2 years, building a case against both the Montenegro and Rodriguez families. Agent Chun's voice was steady, professional. The same Sarah Chun who's been in contact with Rebecca Harper's granddaughter for the past 6 months, helping her gather evidence. Elena's phone slipped from her nerveless fingers. That's impossible. Is it? Did you really think the FBI wouldn't be interested in a tech mogul with ties to organized crime? Or that we wouldn't eventually connect the Montenegro and Rodriguez families to a network of international trafficking? Agent Chen smiled grimly. We've been watching both of you for a very long time. She nodded to her team, who began moving through the crowd, positioning themselves strategically. As for your associates, Agent Chen continued, they've already been taken into custody. Along with the weapons they were carrying and the detailed plans they had for those tragic accidents. Alina finally seemed to understand that her world was collapsing around her. You can't prove anything. Actually, we can. Thanks to Miss Harper's grandmother's files, Mr. Montenegro's cooperation, and 3 years of careful investigation. Agent Chen's expression hardened. Alina Rodriguez, you're under arrest for conspiracy, human trafficking, attempted murder, and about dozen other charges that will keep you in federal prison for the rest of your life. As the agents moved to arrest Alina, she looked at Sebastian with pure hatred. You think this makes you a hero? She spat. You're still guilty of everything I accused you of. You're still responsible for what happened to her. She nodded toward. Agent Chen, you're right, Sebastian said quietly. I am guilty. I am responsible. And I'm ready to face the consequences. Agent Chen approached Sebastian as Alina was led away in handcuffs. Mr. Montenegro, you'll need to come with us for questioning. Your cooperation has been noted, but there are still charges that need to be addressed. Sebastian nodded, then turned to Celeste. She was standing amid the chaos of the ballroom, looking lost and fragile again. I'm sorry, he said to Agent Chen, his eyes never leaving Celeste's face. I know I hurt you. I know I destroyed your life. I know there's nothing I can do to make that right. Agent Chen studied him for a long moment. Mr. Montenegro, my life wasn't destroyed. It was changed. And sometimes change, even painful change, leads us to exactly where we're supposed to be. She gestured to her badge. I became an agent because of what happened to me. I've spent 3 years making sure people like you and Alina can't hurt anyone else. She paused, then added more softly, your cooperation in this case has already prevented a lot of suffering. That doesn't erase what you did, but it's a start. As the agents prepared to escort him away, Sebastian looked at Celeste one last time. You wait for me? He asked. Celeste's eyes filled with tears. For a moment, she looked like the gentlewoman who had offered him tea and shelter from the storm. Then her expression hardened, and Sebastian saw the same resolve that had carried her through the confrontation with Alina. Ask me again when you've earned the right to, she said quietly. Sebastian nodded, understanding. As Agent Chen led him toward the door, he heard Celeste's voice calling out to the remaining reporters. If anyone wants the full story, she was saying, I'll be at Harper's Haven Books. It's time the truth finally saw the light. Asterisk, 2 years later, the brass bell above the door of Harper's Haven Books chimed softly as Sebastian stepped inside. The familiar scent of aged paper and leather bindings wrapped around him like an embrace. But the warmth he remembered was tempered by uncertainty. Celeste looked up from behind. The massive oak desk where she sat grading papers, her auburn hair, was shorter now, more professional, but her green eyes were just as intelligent as he remembered. She wore a simple blue sweater and had traded her grandmother's silver locket for a small pair of reading glasses that she removed as she studied him. You look different, she said finally. Sebastian glanced down at his simple jeans and cotton shirt. Gone were the expensive suits, the perfectly styled hair, the aura of untouchable wealth. 2 years of federal prison, followed by 6 months of community service, had stripped away all the external trappings of his former life. Prison will do that to a person, he replied, attempting lightness but failing to hide the weight in his voice. I heard about the community service. It's teaching computer skills to underprivileged kids. It's not enough. It will never be enough. But it's something. Celeste set down her pen and really looked at him. Sebastian could see her taking inventory of the changes. The lines around his eyes that spoke of sleepless nights and hard-won wisdom, calluses on his hands from manual labor, the way he held himself differently, without the arrogant confidence that had once defined him. Agent Chen wrote to me, she said quietly. She told me about your testimony, how it helped convict Elena's entire network, how you gave up everything you had left to make restitution to the victims. Did she tell you about the others, the people we couldn't help because we found them too late? Sebastian's voice cracked slightly. We're 17 victims of Elena's trafficking operation. We saved 9, the other 8. Sebastian. Names were Maria Carmen, Anna. No. He continued reciting them, a litany of guilt that had become his daily prayer. Sebastian. Stop. He looked up to find Celeste watching him with an expression he couldn't read. Carrying their names won't bring them back, she said gently. It's all I can do for them now. Celeste was quiet for a long moment, studying his face. Is that why you came here? To add my name to your list of people you failed? The question hit him like a physical blow. No, I came too. To what? Sebastian looked around the bookstore, noting the changes. New shelves, fresh paint, a small cafe area in the corner where customers could read while drinking coffee. The space buzzed with quiet activity as several people browsed the stacks or worked at small tables. You expanded, he observed. Help, Agent Chen, it turns out. Loves mystery novels. She invested in the business after everything settled. Celeste's smile was small but genuine. She said she wanted to support a place where truth-telling is valued, and your degree. Finished. I'm teaching part-time at the community college now. Literature and composition. She gestured to the papers on her desk. These are essays from my students about books that changed their lives. Sebastian nodded, filing away each detail. This was the life she'd built while he was paying for his. Crimes, a good life, a meaningful life. Proud of you, he said sincerely. Are you here to say goodbye? The question caught him off guard. Do you want me to be? Celeste stood up from behind the desk and moved to the fireplace where they'd sat 2 years ago. The flames danced just as they had that stormy night, but everything else had changed. I spent 2 years being angry with you, she said, not looking. At him. Angry that you lied to me about who you were. Angry that you brought danger into my life. Angry that you made me care about you. Sebastian remained silent, sensing she had more to say. But mostly I was angry that you made me become someone I didn't recognize, someone capable of manipulation and calculated revenge. She turned to face him. Do you know what the worst part was? Sebastian shook his head. I enjoyed it. Standing up there at that press conference, watching Elena's face when she realized she'd been outplayed. For just a moment, I felt what you must have felt all those years. The intoxicating rush of power over someone else's fate? Celeste, I scared myself that day. I saw how easy it would be to become like you, like her. She wrapped her arms around herself. It took me months of therapy to understand that feeling powerful and using that power to hurt people are two different things. Sebastian moved closer, careful to maintain distance between them. You stopped Elena from destroying innocent lives. You saved people. That's not the same as what I did, isn't it? I manipulated you. I used your feelings for me as a weapon. I planned that confrontation knowing it would hurt you, even if you deserved it. You did what you had to do to survive. So did you. Once upon a time, Celeste's eyes met his. That's what I realized in therapy. We're not so different. You and I, we both lost people we loved to circumstances beyond our control. We both spent years trying to protect what remained. The only difference is that you had more power and made worse choices. The observation hung between them like a bridge across a chasm. So what happens now? Sebastian asked. I don't know. Celeste moved to the window, looking out at the street where his car had broken down 2 years ago. I know I forgive you. I know that what happened between us that night was real, even if it was built on lies. And I know that the man standing in my bookstore right now is not the same man who walked through that door during the storm. She turned back to him. But I also know that I spent 2 years learning who I am when I'm not defined by my relationship to someone else. I'm not ready to give that up. Sebastian nodded, understanding flooding through him. You don't owe me anything, Celeste. I didn't come here expecting forgiveness or a second chance. I came because I needed to see that you were okay, that you were happy. Are you? Am I what? Happy? Okay? Sebastian considered the question seriously. I'm trying to be. I have a job now, working for a nonprofit that helps trafficking victims rebuild their lives. It doesn't pay much, but it feels right. I have a small apartment across town. I read a lot. He smiled slightly. You'd be proud of my library. And at night, when you're alone with your thoughts, I remember their names, all of them. The ones we saved and the ones we didn't. I think about the families that were destroyed by my choices and the families that were reunited because I finally made the right choice. Sebastian's voice was steady now. I think about you reading by the fire, safe and surrounded by stories, and I think that maybe that's enough. Celeste studied his face for a long moment. Would you like some tea? The offer was so simple, so reminiscent of that first night, that Sebastian's throat tightened with emotion. I'd like that very much. Celeste prepared the tea. Sebastian settled into one of the reading chairs by the fire, the same chair where he'd made his promise to protect her, the same chair where she'd seen through his carefully constructed facade to the broken man beneath. Earl Grey, she said. handing him a steaming mug. With honey, you remembered. Dot 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 dot. I remember everything about that night. She settled into the chair across from him, cradling her own mug. The good and the bad. Sat in comfortable silence, watching the flames dance. Outside, Seattle bustled with evening traffic, but inside the bookstore, time seemed suspended. Can I ask you something? Celeste said finally. Anything. If you could go back to that night, knowing everything you know now, would you still have? Come through that door? Sebastian didn't hesitate. Even knowing the pain it would cause both of us. Even knowing that, you met her eyes. Because you changed me, Celeste. You showed me who I could be instead of who I was. You gave me a chance to become someone worth saving. Celeste set down her mug and reached for something beside her chair. Slim, leather-bound volume. It's the same book of Nerutha's poetry. She'd used to expose Alina. I kept this, she said, holding it up. After everything that happened, after all the testimony and trials and headlines, I kept this book. Why? Because it reminds me that love can be both beautiful and destructive, that truth can hurt the people we care about, that sometimes the most important stories are the ones that are hardest to tell. She opened the book to a specific page and began to read. Love is so short, forgetting is so long. The words hung in the air between them, heavy with meaning. Do you think that's true? Sebastian asked. I used to. I thought that what happened between us that night would fade, become just another story I told myself about near misses and might-have-beens. Est closed the book and looked at him. But some kinds of love don't fade. They just change shape. What shape has ours taken? Celeste smiled, and for the first time since he'd walked through the door. Sebastian saw a glimpse of the woman who had offered sanctuary to a stranger during a storm. The shape of two people who learned that sometimes loving someone means letting them find their own way home. Sebastian nodded, understanding. And if that path leads them back to you, then you ask them to sit by the fire and share a cup of tea, and you see what stories they have to tell. As if on cue, the brass bell above the door chimed. The customer entered, shaking rain from their coat. It was just a light drizzle this time, not the tempest that had brought Sebastian to this place. 2 years ago, Celeste rose to help the newcomer, her movements graceful and assured. She was fully herself now, no longer the naive girl who had trusted a dangerous stranger, but not the cold manipulator she'd briefly become either. She was something new, someone stronger. Sebastian finished his tea and stood to leave. Door he paused and turned back. Thank you, he said simply. For what? For showing me that redemption isn't about erasing the past. It's about choosing to write a better future. Celeste smiled. You taught me something too. What's that? That sometimes the best stories are the ones where people get exactly what they need, even if it's not what they wanted. Sebastian stepped out into the gentle rain, pulling his collar up against the evening chill. Behind him, the warm glow of Harper's Haven books spilled onto the wet pavement. He didn't look back. Stories end with reunions and second chances. Others end with understanding and letting go. The best ones, Sebastian had learned, end with both people becoming exactly who they were meant to be. As he walked away, carried with him the memory of firelight and poetry, of green eyes that saw through every lie, and of a love that had been strong enough to save them both by teaching them to save themselves. In the bookstore, Celeste watched through the window until he disappeared around the corner. Then she returned to her desk, to her students' essays about books that changed their lives, and to the quiet satisfaction of a story well told. The brass bell above the door continued to chime softly in the evening breeze, welcoming new stories and new possibilities into the sanctuary she had built from the ashes of her grandmother's dreams and in the margins of a leather-bound book of poetry. Barely visible in flowing handwriting were 2 words that captured everything that had been. Lost and found in the space between one stormy night and another gentle rain, worth it. The end.